call this meeting to order. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please silence all your cell phones and take a moment of silent prayer. Two commissioners at Kansas Association of Counties Conference today, so I'll begin the roll call with Commissioner Vicki Cobbs.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culberson's here. Commissioner Mike Stephen. Here. 3 are present and accounted for. Public comment. I didn't have anybody signed up. Nobody in the room wanted to do public comment. I was going to read a letter from Diane Dunn that was about the LAVTR. I thought it was very good and spot on, so I thought it'd be appropriate to read this to the public. Dear Sir or Ma'am, I'm writing to you as a Leavenworth County homeowner, resident, and taxpayer. It has come to my attention that about $4 million of LAVTR funds belonging to Leavenworth County annually are being kept, instead of being returned to our county to do what it was intended for, property tax relief for Leavenworth County residents. Apparently, Leavenworth County hasn't seen any of that money since 2003. This is deeply disturbing to know that this can even happen. Talk about dirty politics. This should be punishable, and those responsible should be ashamed at a minimum and never work in any position of any government or public position ever again. I am asking that the right thing be done and that Leavenworth County and its citizens receive the relief that this reduction fund was intended for. Seems as if it's been used to pave paths for whatever miscellaneous uses they seem fit, other than what it's intended for. Seriously not sure why Leavenworth County waited as long as they did to report this to Topeka. Thankfully, the matter was brought to the attention of lawmakers, commissions, and finally its own citizens in hopes that something be done about this. To my knowledge, Kansas Association of Counties is on the forefront of getting this resolved, and has asked for its citizens to stand up and say something to get this situation under control and the LAVTR funds being put to the proper and intended use. I will also add that some serious restitution is necessary as well. As a property taxpayer in Leavenworth County, I do expect that the right thing be done by any elected official, law entity, contracted personnel, or anyone that has any control over the LAVTR funds. Once the money is returned to its rightful owners, I do expect it to be put to proper use here in the county, as well with accountability measures put in place to us taxpayers. Respectfully, Diane Dunn. I thought this was spot on. You can tell she's done a lot of research on exactly what's going on with the LAVTR funds. To answer a couple of her questions, why this hadn't been brought up before to Topeka, I think it's because previous commissioners were fearful that what actually has happened would happen. Once we pushed the issue, the people that can make laws simply just made a law saying they don't have to pay it anymore. And I think that's why it probably hasn't been brought up before this commission, because they knew they could just make a law to make it go away. And that's actually what's being done. And the only people that can fix it are the people, the majority, voters. Most of them, that's why we sent out the informational letter to let them know this was going on. But they let it slip through, and I don't know what more to do. I'm not giving up, because if they pass a law that says they don't have to pay it, they can pass another law saying they can start it up again. So that's the way I feel about it. But I thought this was very important information. I wish everybody would put as much effort and homework that she clearly has, because then I think this wouldn't have happened the way it did. Anybody else have any public comment they want to talk about? All right. If not, we'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Van Paris, is there anything?
Not this time, Commissioner.
Okay. Mr. Lothry's not here today. I was going to mention that during silent prayer. His brother passed away, so I thought I'd make sure everybody understood that. Consent agenda. I'll
Mr.
entertain a
Chair?
motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Formal board action. Consider a motion to approve the contract with Finney and Turnip Seed for construction engineering services for Bridge A49 on 211th Street in the amount of $59,250. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Today for your consideration is the approval of two contracts. This is the first of two for the Bridge A49. This bridge is located near Jarbelo. We advertised for RFPs for this project, and Finney and Turnip Seed was selected and issued a notice to proceed based upon the board's previous actions. So today we're just looking for the approval of the contract for the project. Hopefully the project will start mid-June.
I have a question for him, but I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the contract Finney and Turnip Seed for construction engineering services for Bridge A49 on 211th Street in the amount of $59,250.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. We got a memo from you about mixture on the cement.
Yep.
How does that apply to these that we're adopting? Are we using a good quality cement, or are we following the state's recipe, or what are we?
Well, these are locally led projects. The other one was the one that you received the memo for was regarding a KDOT off-system bridge grant project. And so we have the ability to control that. We had previously bid that project prior to finding the issues that we were later found on the bridge on Fairmount Road. And so we will more than likely be working with the contractor to use the previous KDOT mix design on this that was tried and true, and try to ensure that we don't have the same issue moving forward until KDOT prepares some sort of response.
That's all I have.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Cos.
I think we did that by.
What's that?
I think we voted already.
Did we vote? I
Yes.
don't think we did. No.
I
He
thought
wanted
we
to talk
did.
about
You made a
it.
motion, then we did
Motion
have
and a second.
discussion.
Oh, okay. Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Now it passes 3-0. Next, consider a motion to approve the contract with Finney and Turnip Seed for the construction engineering services for Bridge T34 on 219th Street.
Commissioners, this is a very similar resolution to the previous resolution. It is to approve a contract with Finney and Turnip Seed for construction engineering services on T34. Just to elaborate a little bit on the previous discussion, these are different bridges than that bridge that was previously constructed that you did receive the memo on. That was a haunch slab concrete bridge. These bridges do have a concrete deck, but they have their substructure on these are galvanized steel. These are the last two bridges that were part of the 6-bridge package that was designed and contracted with Benish in 2018. So we are hopeful to complete these without any further issues and move that contract behind us.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Finney and Turnip Seed for the construction engineering services for Bridge T34 on 219th Street in the amount of $59,250.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, begin voting with Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Presentations and discussion items. We have anything else anybody wants to talk about? We can go around the.
Well, we need to do our quarterly reports first.
Yeah, I was going to do. Is Todd's here? Todd, did you want to present something or?
I heard there were some questions. I just came over.
Okay. Did the board have any questions for Todd since he's here before we get into the quarterly
We just had
report?
questions about the positions, the 2 extra administrative positions that were for the
Okay, Tyler, you want to come on up?
completion of the COVID backlog.
Yes.
Morning.
Morning. How are you all?
Morning.
Good. Yes.
Well, the question was, I noted that you have completed your COVID backlog according to your statement.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
therefore, we were talking about, those positions with
As-
COVID backlog. So, as you know, with the building and everything, there's a need.
There's a need for.
There's a need for those resources.
Well, I mean, I know there's a huge budget that the county has, and I appreciate the job that you all have to do that. As in my last budgetary meeting that I had in May or June of last year, I informed you, as you all are well aware, that we have an additional judge. That additional judge has caused additional needs upon my attorneys and my staff for the amount of work that they have to take over. Counties such as Johnson, Wyandotte, Douglas, Shawnee, I believe, all with their additional judicial positions being added, had to have additional prosecutors to cover that. It's actually very hard for me to be here right now because we have 3 courtrooms going today and will be going, which we need people downstairs to be able to file cases, much less any amount of time that we spend in a courtroom takes away the time that we could be filing cases or preparing. So I need to have the attorneys to be able to not only do the work in the office, but also be in the courtroom. So, like I said last year, I still need these positions. And in fact, it's a very hard time right now to hire almost any attorneys. The law school attendance has been down. We're not seeing as many people applying for any of the criminal cases, defense or prosecution.
I don't think we're talking about attorneys here. I think we're talking about the administrative positions that were hired to help the backlog on code.
What part of that was the attorneys, but
The 2 positions I'm talking about is the 2 administrative positions. I'm not addressing the funding for the attorneys, but we did fund 2 additional administrative positions for your office to help with the backlog of COVID. So when the backlog is completed, my thinking process was that the remainder of that, of those salaries could be brought back into the general fund.
well, as I explained also last year in regards to the staffing issues, we have had to, not only did we have a complete new system that we're still trying to figure out. We had that implemented during the time that the entire state had no formal electronic filing because Odyssey went down from, I forget, it was like May to September to almost February. During that interim, we also implemented our new system. Our new system does not integrate with the state system, and we're using the system that pretty much, if not 2/3 of the state is using. We're hoping for that integration. What happens is when you don't have that, it takes a lot more time for the staff to input and get everything into the computer. And so right now, we're still needing the staff to be able to have to manually put in everything. So it's added more of a burden than less of a burden due to the statewide program.
So your position is you still need those 2 administrative positions.
Correct.
Okay. And I don't think we meant to put you on the spot, Todd. I think budget cycle is coming up here almost immediately, and so I think what Commissioner Stevens really asking for is in your narrative. We put department heads in place to do the best job to take care of their departments. It's hard for us to understand exactly what's going on behind the lines, and that's what the department heads are for. So I think what he's asking for is justification in your narrative when we get ready to do the budget cycle of those specific positions.
Absolutely.
So,
If it becomes a possibility that I can eliminate staff, I will. It hasn't been that. In fact, it's a tough time to actually find staff. That's what the attorney part of it. In fact, even their salaries comparatively, I mean, everybody knows inflation has gone up. The need for attorneys has gone up. The salaries for attorneys to court them, much less maintain them, has gone up. I'm losing an attorney this very week, moving to Arizona. So I'll be having a void to fill with that. And who knows what the salary is going to have to be, but I'm going to have to be competitive with the markets. My understanding is Wyandott's down 12 attorneys of the 25 is what someone has told me, much less I know Douglas has been dealing with a deficit. In fact, I took one of their attorneys. So it's going to be a fight, but I told Mark and I forewarn you, there's going to be a request to make sure my salaries are competitive, and I'll make sure that you see a salary survey of what the other counties are paying. So I'm not trying to shoot the moon or anything, because last thing I want to do is have a high budget. I've been as lean forever. I think about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I tried to at least make my office competitive with the rest of the county, and I've been hearing about it ever since because everybody keeps mentioning that I've increased my budget, some whatever percentage that they always repeat. And truthfully, everybody who knows that I just made them competitive. In fact, I asked for the salaries of the entire county just to assure that I'm paying them as fair as possible because, the work we do is important. And I personally feel the work that I do, and I imagine all of you have similar feelings about your own work, is the most important. We've had multiple murders and rape cases in the last month with convictions. We have rape cases coming up in the rest of the month. It's taking everything in my office to make sure that we keep this community safe. I think we've been seeing great results, but I want to continue to have that and continue to make sure my community is as safe as possible. So I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you all constantly making sure that we do the best that we can do. So thank you very much.
So just a comment. I'm sure you got the email from County Administrator about the budget. Very tough budget cycle because we have the expense of the building here that was unexpected. We have a lot of other expenses, and basically to maintain a revenue neutral budget for this time, not revenue neutral, but level mill levy. Don't want to misspeak that way.
Please don't.
To maintain a level mill levy, we're going to have to try to get most of our departments to come in at about 2.5%. And anytime I talk to you about budgets or any department, it's like a family around the dinner table. And I know we've been through this before, but it's believe me, it's not personal. It's just these are really tough decisions that have to be made to try to keep this budget where we don't have to raise people's taxes. And that's what we're up against. And that's so if I see a couple positions that were designated specifically for the COVID backlog, and then it's resolved, then obviously that's going to be at least a question for us. But we appreciate everything you do, and want you to feel supported, but also want you to know that we're up against a real tough wall here on this budget.
I understand. Like I said when I started, I understand your position to look at the budget. It's my position to be able to protect the community. So I have to ask for what I need. I'm not. If anything shows in my budget over the amount of years I've been here, I've been as lean as possible. I have very, very few overages. I primarily just staff. I've only ever come over with a need and a full explanation of why I have that need. It's unfortunate that it gets marked that I'm asking for a percentage more and my budget has gone up, when realistically it's just the sign of the times and what's going on. I know everybody's budget has gone up, but to constantly be thrown under the bus doesn't sound like a great family situation. It sounds like I'm being picked on, as if I'm the youngest kid getting the last, soup without getting
we don't
a
want
little
you to feel
noodle.
that way.
Well,
and I know it could come across that way, but mostly it's the fact that we're trying to be fiscally responsible, and we appreciate everything you do, everything the sheriff's office does, everything all the departments do. But when you're talking about this budget this year, and especially with the building issues, it's going to be very difficult.
But this has been a repetitive conversation year after year. Nothing has changed. Nothing has ever been different. It's not this year. It's been every year. And I have not seen anyone come over to see what we're doing. Vicki has. And to come over to see what we're doing and understand what we're doing. Come on over. I invited Mark to come on over. You can see what we're doing, and I have appreciated your support, Jeff. I really do. But you will understand what we're going through. It's not we're working as hard and as fast as possible to get things accomplished as we can with also being successful. And you're seeing our successes, but you have to see how the sausage is made to understand. But again, it's a streamline. And I've had people tell me in the county that we are still underpaying some of my staff. I try to give them a percentage of a raise this year and was told no. Don't know how that occurred, but I allowed it because I didn't want to go over. But I also have people that are getting courted from other attorneys' offices in other counties, and that's staff, not just attorneys, to come because of how great the staff is. I've been able to maintain most of them, lost one of them because of that, but I have a great loyalty. I have a great environment, in my opinion, and I have great people. And what I want to do is be able to reward them and maintain them. And so that's when I ask for anything, is to make sure they're accommodated, especially equal to what everybody else is, just in our own county.
And I think you're feeling exactly what we heard. We already knew was true from the HR report last week, that number one reason in our exit interviews people are leaving is low pay and benefits. It's everywhere. It's all over. Burger King and Hardee's went out of business in town because of they couldn't afford people to get people in there. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I know, and I feel everybody's pain. But I have to be on my side protecting my people, just as like you have to be on your side trying to protect the budget. So, I get there's different roles. I get that there's different ways to go about it. So I have to make sure when I make that ask, and I do, that you understand it's not just a frivolous ask. It's to make sure our office is running functionally and making sure we're keeping up with the demands of the court and demands of the people. The last thing I want anybody here is feel like we're not communicating with them and reaching out to them and making sure that their needs are being met in the best possible way we can. But the last thing I need is to have that taken away, because we have some serious problems. And if you look around the state, there's some counties right now having issues with being able to get any attorney to come to their office. And so we've been kind of blessed because, I'll have a position to fill, but we've had very great attorneys. And so I just need to be able to compensate them and maintain them. We have a couple of capital cases.
That's going to be very time consuming and taxing on your staff.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, the Attorney General's office, we're keeping the case because we can. We're qualified to keep the case, but even the Attorney General's office is like, we can't take any cases because we don't have the staff. So we have to be blessed that we have what we have, but we have to make sure they're rewarded, because I humbly and do believe this is the best county to live in, and I want to make sure that we have the best way we protect them. So I do appreciate you guys doing what you're doing. I don't mind the questions, but you can call me anytime. So.
And I think what Commissioner Stevens most nervous about is we have new construction every year to lower people's taxes. And this year in particular, we don't have the new construction that we've had in previous years. So it's going to be tighter than the last 4 or 5 years is, I think, really the main point.
And I've been preparing my staff and not getting them wishful thinking. And I think they're well aware, and we'll just hopefully can be rewarded at some point, sometime. But we're going to keep doing what we do. So.
Good enough. Have any other questions?
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Todd. We appreciate it. Information Systems Quarterly Report. Morning, Larry.
Morning.
Anywhere you want.
Missing some commissioners.
Yeah, they're at KAC, I think.
It's not on my account.
Well,
Yeah. I'm not going to read the report to you. I never do.
Thank you.
But I figure I might highlight the potential issues we're going to have with OJA regarding district court, which I put as the first item on the report. Hopefully you'd notice that one. We were at a standby for a couple of months in December and January. where we would not go along with certain requirements that OJA was trying to mandate that we comply with in order to get Odyssey back online. You might recall it was out since October. The county attorney mentioned it as well. In January, they had agreed to a compromise where we would become a trial site. And they made a contention that this cybersecurity steering committee would be convened, and then they would take that issue up, and it would probably become something that would be acceptable across the board. I was asked to be a member of that committee, didn't want to, but I went along with it. It doesn't seem to come up in the 2 meetings we've had so far, so I raised the issue, and so did another county, and it doesn't appear to be getting a whole lot of attention out of OJA. So my belief is they're going to continue to push right on down the path that they tried to force feed everybody in December, and when they get to that point, I expect that the county's going to lock their heels again like we did in December, and we'll refuse to budge. And then we'll find out who's bluffing. Because if they turn Odyssey off again, it's going to create a lot of problems for attorneys, the county attorney as well as private attorneys, even the county. David Van Paris should understand what happens when Odyssey goes down. But we're not interested in...
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, myself and Misty have reviewed the proposals that OJA has sent, and quite frankly, I have not brought them to you because they were found to be so unacceptable in the form submitted that didn't want to waste your time with it. We have sent comment back to OJA with respect to the objections we had to their proposed agreement. Have not received anything back yet, but we'll carefully do so. The real issue is OJA more or less attempting to tailor your system for their needs rather than working on a cooperative basis.
Yeah, that's a good summary. The metaphor I used in the last meeting was we invite OJO for dinner, and before we even sit down, they're telling me I got to remodel my living room, redo the bathroom, tear out a couple walls. I said, "You're guests, in our home, and you take over like it's yours." Well, it's not. Now, I understand there is a Senate bill going around right now. I think it's 291, where the state is looking at taking ownership and financial responsibility for all the district courts. That's where, instead of the county picking up the tab on their workstations, their phones, and all this other stuff that we've been doing for years, the state would take over. And I understand the county has sent a letter to the state that they fully support this premise. It was a House bill, now I think it got merged into some Senate bill as part. You were talking about it last week. They bundled it. So Lord knows what's going to happen to it, right? But if it does take place, we're told in the last meeting that it wouldn't happen until 2027. Well, 2027 is still quite a ways away, right? So the whole OJA Odyssey issue now is not going to be resolved by the Senate bill if they take over. So I'm going to continue to be a stick in the mud and not go along with their mandates forever. If they bought the equipment and they paid for everything, as I told them, then do with it as you please. It's yours, But it's not. Right now it's still county equipment. And we're funding everything, so we should have a say in how we connect and what level of security we're comfortable with, not what level of security they're comfortable with. So I know what they're after, and I get it. I would do the same if I was them, probably. But as I told them, I work for the county, so my interests are the county's, and we're going to continue to push back. Their interests are for OJA. It puts us at a standoff, and I expect it's going to become an issue in the coming months. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you catch wind of something before my next quarterly report. Well, that's what's going on. Was there anything else that you found of interest in the report? Questions? I'll be happy to answer anything you'd like.
Nope.
Thank you.
The only question I had was why the sheriff's office has so many
They're a
work
rather
requests.
large
Just size.
organization, so they're one of the largest. But then again, you also have to looking at the type of tickets they get, their application that they use is prone, certain aspects of it break frequently and require their techs. They have 2 technicians in the sheriff's office, and it requires their assistance. So they get a lot of tickets that are the same thing happening over and over and over again. So it looks like quite the quantity, but in reality, it's just an unresolved, I hate to say glitch, but it's a glitchy system they have, and there's some problems.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it the software they're forced to use by the state?
No, not by
No,
the state.
it's
It was their own selection. They have an application from Central Square, and they had just upgraded to the new version called, I believe, Pro Suite a year or so ago. Pro Suite seems to have some nuances that the previous version didn't. When I say nuances, I mean some issues that they have to overcome. And as well, their body camera software that downloads the imagery, I think it's GTAC that they're using now. Their previous system had its nuances. Their current system has some nuances. So when you take it and put it all together, it creates a lot of work for their two techs to go out and squish similar issues on a nonstop basis. Okay. It does make them valuable members of the team, of course, that they have so many problems on a recurring basis.
Okay. I didn't have any other questions. You guys have anything else for Larry?
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks,
You guys
Larry.
do a great job.
Thank you very much. Next, buildings and grounds. Morning, Aaron.
Morning, Commissioners. First and foremost, Trainer HL as well as Mid-Continental Restoration were out. They have completed their Phase 1 evaluation of the exterior of the building. We are awaiting their report. Working with Joy Coleman, she had said that they will put together their emergent items that they recommend, followed by their secondary phases. It should take them a week to 2 weeks to write that up to get it back to us. As soon as I get that back from them, I will be forwarding it on to Mark. I'm sure he will then forward it on to the commissioners. Our quarterly community corrections has seen an uptick in their students. They had a classroom area downstairs and an office area they asked us to open up. We did that in-house. They have a larger classroom area. Ms. Van Houten is happy with it. EMS, we went ahead and finished off. Jamie had funded a lot of things with grant money over there, like new paint, new carpet, the parking lot. We upgraded the lighting over there with our budget, moving to LEDs, and slowly but surely we're going to get rid of all the U-bulbs that we can, due to the fact that the cost with the clips and the U-bulbs and the ballast are 80% of an LED light, and they don't last as long. Cushing, the state has started mandating a third-party inspection on elevators. So that everybody is aware, the elevators in Kansas, basically our tech called it the Wild West, and now they are trying to go to the most updated version, which is the 2019 version of mandates, which is more stringent than Missouri, which is the state that Kansas had took these from. There is pushback. It hasn't been fully instituted. We had our third-party inspections that are instituted. We're waiting for Kone to come back with items that are mandatory and items that they're still pushing back because it's not state law yet. Justice Center, we did some cleanup in our mechanical room. Previous to me being here, we had some large hot water boiler tanks that were bad, and they were left in place after they were severed, but left in place. The final 120-gallon tank that was doing the jail by itself had a slow leak in it. We switched over to a holding tank using the Camus 2 boilers that we have there, put them on the circulating pump that matches the entire building. They're completely happy, hot water showers everywhere. And then we have redundancy with the fact that it's 2 Camus boilers. And when those boilers finally give out, we'll go to a true tankless boiler system, but we'll already have the holding tanks that we need. Just a little forethought, so that way it's not a larger expenditure later. Sewer districts, bane of our existence with grinder pumps, high crests. We've seen an uptick of issues with those. Ginger Creek got cleaned out, and we are working with planning and zoning on the property that is under Baser on making sure that the contractor that purchased that and the developer understands their financial obligations to that district.
Very good. Commissioners have any questions for Aaron?
Answer the questions at the beginning.
No questions.
Thank
you,
you.
Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Next, planning and zoning. Morning, John.
Morning, Commissioners. The first quarter report is going to concentrate on the elements of text amendments, codifying elements that we talked about all year long, like development plan components and the changes to comp plans. We've got our numbers, our development numbers have relatively stayed static from the first quarter of 2023. We anticipate an uptick in the second quarter. We're seeing a lot more building permit activity than we had last year at this particular time. We've got a adoption of the 2012 International Residential and International Building Codes that we're going through right now. We've completed all of the IRC. We're down to the appendices in that particular document. We're going to move on from that to the IBC. We expect that we'll be ready for formal adoption by June or July of this year, as we had talked about in the last quarter of last year. The comp plan has been through several study sessions, and we had the public hearing earlier this month, and that should be moving on to the BOCC. It concentrates on a couple of items. It concentrates on SUP tiering, which we've talked about a number of times in the last year. Essentially, there will be four tiers to that SUP. Expansion of home-based businesses to reduce the overall number of SUPs. Addressing the action matrices in the back of the comp plan and trying to accommodate some of those actions. A good number have been accomplished at this point, and the creation of a utilities commission, which will address all of the specific utilities such as sewer and water and internet connectivity. That will be a function of the BOCC to form that ad hoc committee and define what their scope will be. But the Planning Commission agrees that that needs to be done. So again, that will be forwarded to you shortly. The text amendments that we talked about previously, those have been through a work session and will be on the next Planning Commission agenda, then forwarded to the BOCC. With that, I won't read the rest of the report to you. Do you have any questions?
I don't. Yes, sir.
When we get the 2012 codes updated, you anticipate that will hold for a number of years, or what do you anticipate? Or have they had discussions about what it looks like down the road?
Well, I think they have, and I think the comfort level with the 2012 and the 2018 codes are substantial with the contractors within Leavenworth County. So it's kind of the go-to standard. 2018 and 2012 are very stable codes. It's entirely possible that you'll have those for a number of years, but eventually, 5 or 6 years down the road, you may want to go to an updated code cycle depending on what you do with inspection, if you do anything with inspection. If you don't, and it continues to be voluntary, 2012 can last quite a while, yes.
Vicki, you have anything for
No,
that?
I have no questions.
That's all we had.
All right,
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next, Public Works. Morning, Bill.
Running people off. All right. So we will start the Public Works Quarterly Report talking about Road and Bridge here today. Road and Bridge in the first quarter had to respond to the winter storm that we had there that was fairly extended over several weeks and then had several freeze-thaw cycles. We did haul 23,341 tons of road rock. That is a substantial amount of road rock. I believe in the first quarter, in response to that storm, I had been asked how much money does it take to respond to a storm event such as what we had, and we had come up with various numbers, but we put about $325,000 worth of rock on the roads in the initial response to that. mud event that we had following the winter storms and the freeze-thaw cycles. That was a substantial amount of our yearly rock budget. It did cover most of the county, and we are in pretty good shape from a maintenance standpoint, but not so much from a budgetary standpoint. The trap rock that we had contracted to be hauled in for our chip and seal this year was delivered at 8,797 tons. We did bring in 665 tons of salt, and we used 2,134 tons of sand. We used 8,248 gallons of calcium chloride. So all of those numbers, the salt, the sand, the rock, and then the overtime hours would be a cumulative number that would be used for how much that storm event cost. But it is in excess of $400,000 easily. We were, at the time of the preparation of this quarterly report, fully staffed, but that is always short-lived at the Road and Bridge Department. As of today, we are no longer fully staffed. We've had very good operator leave, a young guy who has provided his notice to go to a private sector, and we have another employee who has left the county. Are there any questions before we move on from the Road and Bridge?
How far below the private sector ballpark are we on machine operators and truck drivers and that kind of thing? If you were putting a ballpark percentage below the private sector.
A percentage? I can say that this employee, from what he verbally told me, received a $14 an hour raise, so approximately $30,000 more than without overtime included, and he received full benefits. So he received a 40%, 35% raise when he moved from the county to the private sector. Now, that's not substantiated because obviously I don't have his information, but that's what we were provided when he provided his notice. Was we asked, what was the reason for him wanting to leave, and it was financial, and he received approximately $14 an hour more when he left.
And obviously we couldn't compete with that, but from what I know, we're competitive with our neighboring counties. Is that correct?
I don't have those numbers currently, what the neighboring counties are. Everybody responded to COVID and inflation differently. So I wouldn't really be comfortable here today without looking at that, saying that we're competitive or we're at or above the county market values around us, because I don't believe I've seen that information since 2020 or 2021.
We probably should have that before the budget.
I can make that request. I think last time it was coordinated by the clerk's office because we looked at more than just road and bridge operators. But I can take a look at that. I know.
But it costs a lot of money.
Operators make a lot more than what we pay them, especially if they're union versus non-union. But even the non-union anymore, they have pretty much matched up with what the union contractors are able to are required to pay. The difference being, if they have benefits, the union benefits are pretty excellent. So what you said, that does not surprise me in the least. I have said multiple times, I think I've even said to Bill, wow, we're lucky to keep such good people that we have kept.
Yeah, and we have a leadership team at the Road and Bridge Department that doesn't turn over, or hasn't in the years that I've been here, in the last 4.5 years. But those folks are well vested into KPERS and are here and have committed to staying pretty much till retirement. And that group doesn't change. It's those people who are here 1 to 3 years that we've gone through hundreds and hundreds of employees in the last 4 years, literally hundreds. I know there was a period after COVID that we did respond with some starting wage increases, but I believe, had a turnover. I can't remember if it was a 6-month period, I believe, that we had 63 employees that we had to onboard and move through the department through approximately 7 or 8, 10 positions.
Yeah, we're kind of serving as a training ground, aren't we?
Yeah, we're also a CDL training facility, and And so we are federally registered
Right.
through the Federal Highway Department in order to provide CDL training. And so now that they've changed the CDL requirements for training, we are providing that to employees in order to get them, in order to be able to fulfill their job requirements here at the county. But once they have that, they are marketable. It is a skill, and it is marketable in the private sector. And we have lost a lot of people for that same reason.
I know the road graders, when you get a good road grader, the constituents, people recognize that it's a good road grader, and not always is it financial, but I know I have an excellent road grader out in our area of the county, and it just does a fantastic job. And whatever we can figure out ways to give them a little pat on the back, or figure out a way to let them know that they're appreciated. I don't know.
I appreciate the work all those guys do. It's long, it's hot, it's dirty, it's cold. It's a grueling job that a lot of those guys do, and I think for the most part, all of them really try to do the best job to their ability and their knowledge level
Absolutely,
at the time.
they do.
And they really try to take some pride in their work, I think, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and some of them are just doing an
Our
outstanding
road crews
job.
are incredible.
Yeah,
They
do a
really
great
are.
job.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And I hope they know they're appreciated. That's what we do appreciate them, and
That's
I
why
know
you need to
do.
show up all the time when we're getting ready to have our picnic again, and you need to show up and be here. And
They'll come eat.
they'll come eat,
There's
and they
no
love to
doubt
come eat,
about that.
and they
We got
love to
a
have
lot of-
fun.
There's a lot of guys that enjoy a good meal. Any other questions about the road department before we move on?
Go ahead.
Within Public Works, the next portion of the quarterly report highlights the different projects. I know you guys are going to continue. It's already started here just this week, but it's going to continue throughout the summer. That you're going to be contacted by your constituents regarding detours. We are closing roads all over the county. We are replacing multiple box culverts, bridge structures under 20 feet, and those require closures of some major county routes, and we are going to have traffic on roads, secondary roads that don't generally see the type of traffic that they're going to receive this summer. So currently we have 206th Street closed, and I know you guys have received different correspondence regarding 214th Street and some of the neighboring gravel roads in that area. We are closing Eisenhower Road in the coming weeks. The contractor did come up with an agreement with the property owner in order to use their driveway to access the properties between those two culverts on Eisenhower during the duration of the job. And so if we allow them to do a pour-in-place application instead of a precast box, they can pour both of those at the exact same time, or within a week of each other probably. And we are going to try to the intention was to use precast to reduce the time because they were going to have to build them one at a time. I assume they had financial compensation to a property owner way across their property, but they're allowing traffic to flow through that property in order to do both of them at once. And so that closure will start in the coming weeks, and it will last several months. 187th Street, just around the corner to the south from the end of Eisenhower Road, north of the co-op, is going to have a bridge replacement project. That road also gets in excess of 1,000 vehicles a day. And so we have 219th Street that you guys approved the construction engineering on. We have A49, which is the county route coming north out of Jarbelow that people use to get to Lansing or over into Leavenworth. And so we have a lot of major routes with using the ARPA funds to replace these culverts and pay for portions of these bridges, and then our general CIP funds that we are using. We are going to have a lot of closures. 158th and Golden in your district, Commissioner Steben, is going to be closed for a while, and so we will continue to see those phone calls come in. It does create a lot of dust on the roads where people divert traffic. Not everybody's going to take a hard surface detour if it is longer than the neighboring gravel road. So I anticipate that we're going to hear from the public a lot with safety concerns and dust concerns and possibly mud as we move forward through this summer with the number of road closures. We have coordinated with the Sheriff's Department, provided them some maps. We're going to continue to do so, and we will be meeting with Jamie and his team at EMS in order to make sure that they are aware of the situation on Eisenhower and access to those homes through that private property that has been negotiated by the contractor. So we'll continue to work with our emergency services to ensure that they understand where these closures are occurring and when they're occurring. If anybody has any questions about specific projects, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Yes, sir.
Can you address, just for the public, the different requirements? Like if we are, like a cattle crossing is one thing, or versus if we're going to put speed limit signs up. I know because I've had multiple requests for speed limit signs, and we got into this with George Road. But can you address the? I mean, I'm sure a cattle crossing is much different than a speed limit sign.
Yes. So signage requirements are set forth by federal and state laws and regulations, and every sign is treated differently, whether it's regulatory or a warning sign. Makes a difference on how it's applied. So a cattle crossing sign, you would refer to the MUTCD and see when it is appropriate to use. There would be a question of whether or not it should be posted or how it should be posted based upon allowing agricultural animals within your road right-of-way, knowing that there's traffic in northeast Kansas. So that would be, we would address how that applies through the MUTCD codes. As far as speed limits goes, the state of Kansas has a minimum speed limit on unposted roadways of 55 miles an hour. So gravel roads that are not posted with a speed limit in the state of Kansas are refer back to state jurisdiction and jurisdictional control. They're not locally controlled, and so they are 55 miles an hour based upon state statute. If you want to reduce that speed limit, generally you would have to do some sort of engineering analysis, which is going to cost money and be done by a contractor where they do traffic counts. They complete the traffic counts and they look at the 85th percentile speeds on the roadway and the line of sight at intersections and driveways to ensure that the speed limit meets the conditions of the roadway. It is thought that the average person, or the 85th percentile speed, is the average speed at which the average person travels the roadway and feels safe, because the average person wants to be safe when they do travel the roadways. So that is one of the first criteria that's looked at, and then secondary criteria of the alignment in both vertically and horizontally of the road, and the width, and any other factors that an engineer would use to make that determination. But it is not as simple as just stating we're going to post this speed limit at a certain.
And that's true even on a reroute or a detour.
Yes, I mean, you're aware of the situation on George Road. It would be the same situation on all of these projects.
But people don't understand that. That's the issue, and of course we don't want people speeding. And we visited about whether the state statute maybe should be changed so that counties have discretion to establish what the roadway speed is.
Without that expense, that's the
Right.
Yes. So there has been legislation in the past proposed that would lower the speed limit on all unmarked roads to 35 miles an hour. It was not supported at all.
I don't
by
think it
Western
would be by
Kansas.
Western Kansas
They're not
because,
gonna- But if you could allow the discretion of the counties to make that decision, and post it at county line.
There's a big difference between Leavenworth County or, say, Douglas or Miami County and Gove County in Western
Right.
Kansas.
Yep.
where they have one paved road in the whole county. That's
I mean,
maintained by
you
the
look,
state.
you get into western Kansas and the semis and things are going down gravel roads going 55 miles an hour just as happy as can be. I mean, it's and the dust is flying everywhere. So,
Yep.
And in Scott County, my grandparents were from Scott County. It's flat as a pancake.
right.
So I mean, and it's dry, and the
Yeah.
roads are pretty good. You know, even though they're dirt.
But when they're going down, the dirt,
Yeah.
the dust is flying. That there's dust associated with dirt and gravel roads. That's just
So anyway, I just want people to know. I mean, getting a cattle crossing gate is a lot easier because that can be handled in house. When we did the traffic study on 222nd Street, I believe it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was about $7,000.
Yes, that's correct.
and it came up that there needed to be no change. So it's
But we did post it.
right. But to post it. But I'm just saying that it didn't.
And when we did the speed count on George Road, the 85th percentile was the 35 mile an hour that was
Right.
that the road was already posted. Not looking at the some of the line of sight and doing a full engineering analysis, but looking at what the average speed of the average traveling public. When they
Problem
went
on
down the
George
road.
Road is going from 100 cars to 2,000.
Right. I just don't know how we. It's kind of like how do you convince people to respect their neighbors or whatever and slow down when they are going off of a paved road to because of a detour or whatever. Just have a little bit of respect for the people the other people on the road, the people that are in the neighboring homes and things. Show a little bit of respect for each other, and that's the problem. And I don't know, we can't force that.
No. The other thing that we haven't received any phone calls in the office about, but just so you're aware, it's nearly complete. But the 2024 bridge inspections have been ongoing over the past 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and they will continue for another probably week and a half or 2 weeks. But if people do occasionally call in when they see people even though they're marked vehicles, climbing in and around bridges all over the county. We have several studies that are currently ongoing. We have a federal grant for the Safe Streets for All. We are currently working both with the GIS staff and the road and bridge staff to help work on building our internal web page for that. It's going to be a link. It's going to be hosted by the county, but it has to have a standalone page dedicated to that study, and we are currently building that page. So by the time we come back next quarter, that will be completed. We are going to be reaching out to the schools, the fire departments, the law enforcement within the community, and setting aside some peer group that we are required to have and have a few meetings. I believe there is one open meeting that we're going to have completed on some off-site location for public outreach. And so that study is really gearing up, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it over the coming months. Any questions about the projects before we move forward?
All the water district agreements are working. We're not having conflicts with water districts at the moment.
At the moment, we don't have any requests that we don't have any agreements in place for, so we don't have any water line relocations that are currently an issue.
So, and we had talked about reviewing whether to change our policy. You were going to, I don't know if you were, or somebody in your department was going to send out a letter to the water districts. Have you received any kind of response from that?
That was actually going to be a task of county counselors.
Oh.
And
Right,
so,
that's county councilor that was going to.
Okay, so I have not heard.
I believe that there's a draft prepared and ready to be sent out in the coming days. We did provide a list of and mailing address for all there's actually, I believe, 17 water districts that will receive that.
So that's not been sent out yet. So it's
prepared and ready, I believe,
right.
and it will probably be sent out before the end of this week.
Okay.
We're going to fleet management within Public Works. We continue to stay on our replacement schedules as best as possible with any shortages or delays based on manufacturing. Currently, there has been an increase in pricing, as you guys are aware of, in vehicles and heavy machinery, and we are looking at all options on what is the best government option for either lease or purchase, and we continue to do that. If anybody has any questions about our fleet, I know this will be something that is discussed heavily during the budget process. We do keep spreadsheets and records and coordinate this for every department, so every department will be provided a spreadsheet for the expense of any leases or leased machinery or vehicles that they do have that would be a line item within their budget. It really isn't dependent upon our budget, is dependent upon inflation, and that inflation's been high. Any questions about the fleet or the equipment procurement processes that we're currently doing?
No.
The GIS department in Public Works, they continue to do an excellent job. Soma and her staff have undergone some updates to our GIS web map and our GIS hubs. We continue to host both the Integrity website and our interactive map that is primarily used by the appraiser's office, and specific maps that we are hosting through the Esri for more departmental specific items that we can provide to the public, which would be your Public Works and just various planning and zoning department mapping. We do map all of the planning and zoning building permits and help them track those locations and quantities. And we continue to work through any glitches or errors in the topology, I believe would be the correct terminology, but the merging of the property lines. And as we get done with the surveys of the townships, we try to rectify any property line issues that have been created by assumptions of the locations of the section corners. Be happy to try to answer any questions you do have. We currently, we did have one staff member leave in the last quarter. That position is currently vacant. It's been vacant for probably a week and a half, and we are interviewing additional staff or additional candidates for that position.
Have you had very many applications for that?
Yeah, we've had a lot more than the past. I will say that it seems to be a field where people who are highly educated, there are almost all of the applicants that we have had a lot of different jobs in their job history, but we have had several PhDs and two PhDs and some people with some master's degrees in geology. It seems to be that the geology field requires a lot of movement, but then they're more of a geologist. They have what they lack is you don't get a GIS specialist who's turnkey and ready to go. You get a highly educated person who is applying for the position who has done a little bit of GIS as part of what they are interested in because they enjoy the mapping aspect of geology. But we aren't getting applicants who are actually fully qualified for the position who can come in and do the job. We might get a person with a PhD in geology or geophysics, but their mapping experience has just been something that is a ancillary portion of their education enough to be able to actually pursue their PhD. A lot of them seem to be educators, graduate assistants, because while we have a hard time competing in the private sector and for pay, a graduate assistant at a university does
They get
not.
nothing.
They get like absolutely nothing. And so we have had some applicants, but I'd say probably 10 for this position in the last 3 weeks, none of which are that we have interviewed yet. We've interviewed 3, are fully qualified or ready to go. Whoever we do hire, more than likely will require some training, at least 6 months, to train an individual to understand what the county's role is in GIS and how to utilize, GIS.
It hasn't changed at all. When I was in that department, I never hired one single employee that already knew how to do the GIS.
But isn't that sometimes sometimes there's an advantage to having somebody that's qualified but not qualified, so that you can train them very narrowly to what your needs are versus somebody that already thinks they know everything and you're trying to say, no, you don't. Here's what we need. I'm just saying that you're going to always have a learning curve, I think.
It is a steep learning curve for that position. That is
Right.
probably one of the longest learning curve positions that we've had. And the issue that we've had in that department is that in 4 years, this is the 3rd person.
Yeah.
This would be the 4th person in 4 years that we've had in that position. And when it takes 6 to 9 months for a person to really understand how, they may have mapped, archaeological sites on a national parks level, but they don't understand soil usage maps and taxation, and they don't understand NG 911, and they haven't worked in large databases for NG 911 address points, and they don't understand SQL, and not many of them understand or have used a lot of Python script to automate any processes, and then you get
So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you get some people working in ArcPro, and then you get some people working in Model View. So I don't understand why Esri has basically 2 standalone programs that don't interact well, but it seems to me that they push the ArcPro out without working any of the glitches out of the program, and they are almost 2 separate programs that company will have to continue to operate as separate. I mean, they both have a function, but they don't operate well together, even though they're put out by the same company and do the same things.
Have they indicated why are they leaving? For better pay, or just they're tired of it and it's kind of burnout, not what they thought?
We asked them.
I just wonder.
to leave. We asked them to
Oh,
leave.
I say
okay.
some of them are voluntary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless
That's why I
you-
said because they're not really producing. That's why I was
Yeah.
saying is it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that learning curve is steep, and
Yeah. Well,
after 6 months or
unless you find somebody that's done county GIS before, there's no other GIS position out there for any other job that's like county GIS, is what I've found over the years. So you're going to have to find somebody and train them on the rest of it. That's the way it just
and they're going to have to
works.
be willing to learn. That's why and to stick with it.
And if you have like a GIS specialist in it working, there's a lot that we've got applications. We've had several this time, 2 or 3 that work for gas companies. Gas companies do a lot of mapping of their gas lines and tracking their inventory through mapping. But that type of, whether they've done that for 4 years or they've done it for 6 months, they didn't create the map. They didn't manage. They're just searching through attribute tables and looking for locations and maybe highlighting what pipelines are being replaced. It is not at the level, even if you have a master's degree, you're not doing the skill set that we are looking for in any way.
So what are your
Very
qualifications that
specialized.
you're requiring?
very
I'm just
specialized.
curious.
We put preferred a GISP, which is like a master's level certification,
Right.
because a lot of folks have that, and everybody who's applied has had that. We put preferred on a lot of that. You have to have I believe, a bachelor's degree in a GIS or GIS-related field with 3 years of experience in some sort of GIS functioning, which a lot of the applicants have been graduate assistants who have done some mapping for a number of years through their master's program and through graduate assistant positions. But, yeah, it's pretty difficult.
Yep, that hasn't changed.
So are we looking at or even having conversations with the different universities in having courses that might more specialize in county type, in that type of,
They exist.
Yeah.
Soma taught one at UMKC, so she taught like mapping in the public land surveying system.
right, so that's why I was just, maybe at Pitt State or at K-State, where they have some of the construction programs where they're kind of getting those in there and really encouraging that as a required
course.
I mean,
It'd be more of like a geology type or geography, maybe
right.
even.
But just in general, trying to figure out if there's a way of working with the Department of Education to say, hey, this would.
Well, I think
benefit your
those
students.
courses are already in a lot of the programs. It's just that if they took one semester of mapping
Right.
within the public land surveying system and they took 4 semesters of SQL and Python and database management and all these other like IT-driven
Right.
fields, a lot of these folks are they have taken the course. The course exists. They just aren't specialized in any way. And other than they understand maybe the concept that all land is divided into squares, they haven't really worked in, other than to pass their test in that one
Right.
specific course that they took, but they don't really understand the public land surveying system.
Yeah.
And they understand soil types, but they don't understand how that relates to taxation and how important it is that the soil type is mapped correctly, whether you're in row crop or hay or you get taxed
Right.
differently. So it takes someone in the job for a while, really,
Right.
unless you can find someone who wants to leave one city or county and go to another one.
Thank you.
Yep. The only other topic that we had within the quarterly report is the surveying department, and they are currently working in Kickapoo Township. I did include a map of where they have made it to thus far since the last quarterly report. They had completed Alexandria and Easton, and they were just starting Kickapoo. They are, I would say, 60% done with the Kickapoo Township survey. They started on the western end. I think it will take them several more months as you move towards the fort and the Missouri River. The river has changed course on the north end of that township, and the survey basically hits a wall from the old government land, GLO, Government Land Office surveys, when you hit the fort. So there's no crossing over into the federal lands with the government land surveys. And so it'll be interesting to see how many monuments are missing or how many issues we find within the township surveys as we get to that last, say, 3/4 of a mile to mile up against the river in the townships. But I'm sure that we'll come up with some solutions, and hopefully they find some good evidence of the location of those boundaries.
Good.
Any other questions?
That's a good project. I wish we would have done that before reappraisal. It would have solved a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's something that I think it's undervalued, the importance of establishing all those section corners. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds, probably 150, I wouldn't say hundreds and hundreds, but I'd say 150 or more either missing corners or double corners where you're have more than one monument at a section corner, just in the 2.5 townships that they've done thus far. And so establishing all those locations that all of our properties that have such high values are based upon, really, it fixes some of the line work within our GIS, but it also establishes those as a huge service for those folks that own the land, because as a surveyor, you no longer are making a guess when you're bidding a job within one of these. You have the section corners that all legal descriptions are written off of that have been established by a county surveyor, and statutorily that carries a lot of weight.
And it drives down the cost of surveys
Yes,
for
that's
individuals.
Yeah, anybody can pull it up. I mean, the location is established, if you are, you should still go out and shoot them as a competent licensed surveyor going to do a field survey, but you can find two of them and you can calculate the position
Right.
and stake out the other 9 or other 7 section corners within any given location.
Yeah, any of the cost that we're spending on this is made up exponentially from everybody who gets a survey down the road. Their surveyor won't charge them as much because we have located corners.
And boundary disputes. Just boundary disputes in general. Dan's done an excellent job of resolving several already, but this will really, when completed countywide, should really decrease the number of land disputes that you have where people are arguing over the location of some of their property lines, because any surveyor should be coming off of the same point of origin as established through these township surveys.
Right.
So less fence viewings.
No,
Yeah.
fence viewing is a different thing.
It's not about the fence.
I just remember doing that when I first got elected. Fence viewing
Restrand barbed wire.
with our attorney.
It's not about the fence.
Is that all you got, Bill?
Yeah.
Good job, thank
Guys
you.
have any
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it.
I made sure you wanted to do more.
Thanks, Bill.
That's all the quarterly reports they have. Presentation discussion items. You have anything, Vicki, you wanted to share?
I'll see.
Particular.
I have had 2 separate meetings with the Transit Authority. One with the team or peer review people that are from different transit authorities are at the KCATA right now. Just kind of giving input and critiquing or giving kudos for the way that it's operating at this point in time. And then we had the Finance Committee meeting yesterday. And then yesterday, I also attended the Port Authority meeting and the Baser ribbon cutting for the new City Hall because Doug couldn't make it. And then last evening, I attended the City of Leavenworth City Commission meeting, and they had updates on several of the different programs that the city is involved with, including the we had the library that kind of gave a quarterly report for the Leavenworth Public Library, and then we had the the Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Travelers Bureau, which had a really good report and a lot of information, and then the Leavenworth Development Corporation came and did an update for the city commissioners and it was all really good information, and I think it's all available at their different Facebook pages or websites. But the city of Leavenworth is doing well. So that's all I have.
Very good. So I met with Fort Leavenworth folks about our EMS service that we provide Fort Leavenworth for free. Discussed some options with them. The MOU has come up this year. Mr. Van Paris is helping me work on a change in the MOU. I kind of briefly went over the fact that times are tough and we doubt if we're going to be able to provide EMS service to Fort Leavenworth for free from this point forward. So we're working with them folks on figuring out what that's going to look like. Talked to Doug Walbridge, Commissioner of Jefferson County, about the non-sanctuary county resolution that they filed, and I'm getting that to Mr. Van Paris so we can work on one as well. Worked with Easton City over the 2 FEMA lots. We're going to get a lease agreement with them. One of them they're using for a ball field parking lot, and the other one is their actual water well to the city of Easton is on it. So they've been maintaining these lots already for a couple of years. That's all I have. Mr. Stephen, you have anything?
We went to the LCDC quarterly report and then we had a presentation on the Panasonic plan.
Oh, that's right. Did that
It was
too.
really good, and
was.
there's a lot of things going on in that area. I met with folks from the Tonganoxie Police Department and some other folks about developing open buildings for tornado shelters that have basements for folks that are in houses that do not have basements. Then I also visited with some folks at the school district about the possible presentation on fentanyl in the fall with Mr. Burris coming out and doing a presentation. So a lot of things going on.
All right. That's all we have. We'll entertain a motion.
So move to dismiss?
Second.
Motion and a second. Voting.
Aye.
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 Meeting dismissed.
We're dismissed.
Adjourned. Sorry
Adjourned.
about that. I was
Adjourned.
wrong, wasn't I?